Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, and I am joined, as always, by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hi, Tara. How are you doing today?
I am so excited to be talking about the Blazers. Schedule just got released. We got Labor Day weekend coming up. We got traditional camp about ready to open. So excited.
Do you think that this is maybe like jumping like way too into it already, but I was like, do you think that their Dame's gonna come back and do all his like his camp, like his getaway camp with the players like he used to?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. Yeah, that was like one of the first things when he came back. I was like, "Oh, yay, the return of the." But I remember he had sort of stopped doing that towards the end because he had like three little kids, and so maybe it was harder. But maybe he can coach some of the other players to start thinking about doing that kind of leadership activities. Like right now, like all these guys are kind of finishing up their summer camps and things like that they're doing like out in the community. And so maybe someday Damien will be in their ear going, it's another really great team building activity? Santa Barbara.
Yeah, those are I always like the pictures from those. And it always nice to see the guys like bond in like non-basketball ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Playing
so
like well, and I think Chauncey has done a bit of that, over the years. I don't know if he's probably not the first person that like took him down to the Ducks to go play football. I'm sure that was done before, but they have done some of those types of like group excursions
mhm.
under his leadership.
Yeah. The thing that makes Dame, I think, well, what uniquely suited to it from the past is that he was like the longest tenured player, but also he makes enough money to be able to like make it happen. And we don't have as many guys on this team that make that kind of money.
No, we do have a few mid-30s guys who could maybe put a little bit of I don't want I'm certainly not telling people how to spend their money, but maybe could contribute together to some of these types of things while they're here and playing the role of mentors.
Yeah, totally. Ugh, like so when I was thinking about getting ready for this episode, I was like, gosh, what happened this summer? And I was like, oh my God, so much happened this summer. And I'm so used to summers where like, I don't know, a like minor move is sold to us as a big important move and like I- now we just it was like a barrage of stuff that happened to us. And I will say like last year when we acquired Denny, like I thought it was going to be good. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it ended up being, but I thought it was going to be good. um but like not a lot else happened besides that. And this year it was like trades galore and like the return of the king. And I was like, well, what what even happened?
Yeah,
There's too
no,
many things to talk about. Which,
oh, I was going to say
go
that
ahead.
as I was thinking about that, because what we're going to talk about in a little bit is we're going to be discussing the top stories of the summer of 2025. And I went to my old standby, which was to go back and look at all the players' social media to see what they've been doing and go to the NBPA's website and see which Trailblazers participated in, like how to become a franchise mogul, how to invest in real estate. And Pat Connaughton was like in every single one of those things. And so those were what I used to think of. Like there would be like the acquisition of Mario Hazonia and then Pat Connaughton like going to a real estate seminar. That would be the type of summers that we would have.
Hmm.
So I was looking for all of those little things and I was like, man, there's just really nothing happened. And then like it's because I'm just so decent. Or maybe I'm just so numb that those big things didn't even like make it through until I started thinking about it. Like, oh yeah, we did have a number of very large things happen, like ground shifting things happen this summer.
Yeah, maybe this might be like the most action-packed summer ever. I can't think of another summer that would come close to what happened this summer, especially with like, front office things, ownership things, and then also the acquisition of like players and changing strategy and, maybe trying to win. I don't know. Like I just can't think of another summer that has been so like defining for
Hmm.
what's to come next.
Yeah.
But before we talk about those stories, I want to talk briefly with you first about the second Chalk Talk we got to attend. So, as you guys all probably remember, uh, last spring, Tara and I got invited to what was called a Chalk Talk, where we got to sit and talk with the assistant GMs, Andre Patterson and Mike Schmitz, about the direction of the team and ask them questions. And it was a really awesome opportunity to hear like their perspectives on what building a franchise and a team and an identity meant to them. And we got an opportunity to do it again in July, which was, I think, a great surprise to Tara and I. We weren't expecting to be invited again. And what was even a bigger surprise is that not only did we get to go again, but it was like most of the same people we saw last time. It was a smallish group. I think there was maybe like 8 or 9 folks there, and they added a couple new people, but in general, it was the same guys that we met at the first Chalk Talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the same, we got to meet Andre. We talked to Andre and Mike again. Casey Holdall was there. The director of communicate is Rashad, the director of communications. So some of the same team folks were there as well. But yeah, I was shocked that they asked us back.
I know.
We must have behaved ourselves okay.
I think Rasan is the vice president of communication
Okay.
for the team. But yes, he was there, and I think wasn't Ryan Flaherty there for just a second.
Mm.
And then there was
Yes.
one other gentleman there whose name is escaping me right now, but he was involved. He's from the marketing department. But yeah, and Casey was there, and he asked questions of Andre and Mike, and then they just allow us to. I'm like shocked actually at how freely they allow us to just like raise our hands and ask a question.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they don't screen them. They're not worried we're gonna like act out or ask something embarrassing. And I don't know, maybe because it was their second time doing it, I felt far more comfortable asking questions.
Hmm.
Um, and it just felt more casual to
Hmm.
me.
The format of it is a lot of them talking, Casey asking them questions and them having a dialogue. And the first time we did it, like we all sat there very patiently while they had this whole entire dialogue. And then at the end of it, there was questions. And this time
Hmm.
we were just sort of like jumping in with questions the whole time and nobody, complained and stopped us. There may have been questions where that they didn't like couldn't answer directly for us, but they like were very they would be straight up about that, and then they would just talk about something else that was quite interesting. What were your like main takeaways? I know it was like a month ago, but what do you remember the most about the conversation?
Um, well, okay, so the one thing that I remember the most is because I asked a question about this because I have wanted to know the answer to this, which is I asked a question about Tiago Splitter because I was curious if, we acquired Yang Hansen in the draft. We have Donovan Clingan, both young, talented centers. I was curious if part of the reason why Tiago Splitter was being brought in was because he was going to be specifically a big man coach, or if they were brought him in as more of like a bigger picture, not necessarily focused on big man stuff, coach. And it was clear that Mike said that like, they like who he is as a coach beyond just what he contributes to big men. And that makes perfect sense, right? Because he's been coaching overseas a little bit. He's done I forget, I don't remember the game, but Mike was like, for a deep cut, go look at this game from Tiago Splitter's coaching from like 2002 or so, or no, it's like 2022 or something like that. I didn't write it down, so I don't remember the game he told me I should go back and watch. But it's clear that they like him as a coach broadly, not just as a big man coach. But they also acknowledge that, like, yeah, like having a coach that can work with big men is a huge upside right now because we have two young, talented big men that are going to need to develop into the NBA style centers. But they also, I think Andre said that you don't necessarily need to be have played as a big to be able to coach a big. And I totally believe that, especially coming from Andre, who was like a power forward center.
Mhm. And we didn't follow up with the question of, so you guys have clearly listened to the podcast because we've been asking about a big, a big man coach, and then you
Right.
went out and got one. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think one of the things that interests me about this whole format of like calling in like a group of fans, and it's clearly a group of like fans, people who like love the team and are very interested in the success of the team, and it's not people necessarily who are like, it's definitely like not media or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Um, but it's just interesting because, we're sort of there. If we're like, if they're trying to get feedback from us about what we think about the team and the direction of the team, they're not asking us that directly. They're just
Mm-mm.
talking about themes, and I'm wondering, are they just talking about themes and seeing how we react to that, and then like listening to like what our questions are to be like, oh, we didn't know that, maybe we didn't know how much that was on people's minds or something like that. So I think it's a very interesting because it's like we're in this little fishbowl, having these really fun conversations, which I am going to come and participate in that conversation every single time I'm invited because it is really fun. But it's also interesting to think about it as like we are somehow like bringing information to the team that they can use to make sure that the team is going in a direction that they want to be going. I mean, like that
Hmm.
might be overstating how important our comments are, but they can get a feel. Let's say they can get a feel for what's on the mind of the fans.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because so as somebody in like my professional life, I've done a lot of work around focus groups and interviewing and looking for specific types of information around certain topics. And this is not like what we have participated in is not anything that
Yeah.
resembles what I would do if I was actually going to go and talk to people and find out what they're thinking about and what they're interested in, because it's far more of like a passive situation for us. That said, though, like they do hear about what our questions are, which are not necessarily on the topics that they're raising. And they also kind of get to see our reactions to what they've already done. Like
Hmm.
at one point, I think during that chalk talk, I forget who said this, but like one it was Mike, I think. It was Mike or Andre who said something like, you all came here last spring, and part of that has helped set the direction of the team that you're the moves that we're making now. And I was like, really? What did we say last time? I don't think
I
we
know.
said anything that interesting.
We did talk about big man. Um, one of the I agree. Like it did not feel like, it doesn't feel like a focus group. It does feel like a genuine conversation. And both of those guys are so personable. They're so easy to talk to. They have great charisma. They're funny. They're like, Mike Schmitz is has very self-deprecating humor. That's funny
Hmm.
to listen to. He was talking about like old tweets, because we were talking about how like every time they get a new player, we go and we like look up like Mike Schmitz plus whoever, and he's like, yeah, some of my tweets really aged well, and some didn't.
Yeah. And then he made some comment about how he wishes he could get some of them taken down.
Yeah.
Because some of them are good and he would stand by, and some of them maybe not so much, and he wishes that they were deleted off the internet.
Yeah. The thing that I walked away with was they talked about Jerami Grant a lot more than they did last time, and a lot more than I was expecting. There was, okay, so
Yeah.
I guess I should say overall they talked a lot about Yang Hansen and about Damian Lillard. Those were like the two major, and they also made sure that they talked about Scoot. But yeah, like I said, they talked about Jerami Grant a lot more than I was expecting. And that,
Well,
if anything, felt like they were like feeding us something, even though I'm not saying that they were. But I think like last time, I don't think that they talked about him very much at all. And so this time they're like, remember, Jerami Grant is still here. He's still on the team. He's going to be around, and just sort of like planting the seed for us to like spread around that Jerami Grant is still a part of the
yeah.
team, and they know that, and he will be here for a while.
Well, and for context, this Chalk Talk happened the week after we got the Damian Lillard news.
Yeah,
So
right
like
after.
right after. And I was like, did they plan this Chalk Talk to happen right then? And when we got there, it didn't sound like that's actually what happened, but it was fortuitous because then we got to have a nice discussion about Dame and what that meant and also what it meant for like the future of the point guard position. Um and I would say like one of the things that I they didn't outright say this exactly the way I'm about to say it, so don't like I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth, but my I walked away with the feeling that like Scoot, they still have Scoot in like the center of their plans. Like I don't think that they think that they're handing the reins to somebody else. That this is now, the Drew Holiday show, the Damian Lillard show, whatever. Like I still think that they are thinking about Scoot as the future. And they were really clear. They're like, Dame's probably not gonna play
Hmm.
this year. But he's going to contribute in lots of other ways. And we know that he can, and we know that he's generous, and we know that he thinks about, what it means to contribute off the court as well as on the court. And also it became clear that like they didn't make any of these moves for Drew or Dame without talking to Scoot.
Hmm.
And so like I think a lot of the fans wondered if like Scoot was involved in these conversations and how he might feel about them. But like if they involved him the whole way, like that makes me feel good about them not like, I don't know, leaving somebody in the dark.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
makes me feel good that they're working toward a plan where everybody's on the same page and everybody's working toward the same thing. And your point about Jerami, I think is really interesting because I think that when we saw them in the spring and they didn't talk about Jeremy, I felt really confident that they were trying to move Jeremy.
Hmm.
Just because they didn't say hardly anything about him in terms of the future.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot
And
has
those
happened
things,
since spring.
those, yeah, and those things aren't mutually exclusive. You know,
Yeah, 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 totally.
not talking about him one time and then talking about him another time, like they don't cancel each other out. It just kind of maybe
No.
talks about the team being in a different place, or yeah.
Though I'll say the one thing that was surprised about moving from the spring conversation we had to the summer one we had was I was more surprised that they moved Ant because of what happened, what they were, how they talked about him in the spring.
Interesting. Yeah, they did
Um,
talk about Anthony.
They talked about him a lot, and I thought that maybe he might still be a part of their longer term plans because of how much they talked about him and his role and his contributions. Um, I'm not saying it's bad that they moved
Hmm.
on or whatever, but like I just that based on like what I saw in the spring, my expectation was a little bit different, and I was a little surprised that they moved him. Although I know that people have been talking about that since forever now. So,
Yeah. And it depends on who needs, what out of a player to, and where they are, and teams needs change in a moment, with player injuries, things like that, things can change in a moment. But I do remember thinking that when we walked, you and I talking about afterwards, like, oh, it sounds like Anthony Simon seems like he's an important part of the future of this team.
mhm. Yeah. And
Mm,
then they moved him anyway.
yeah. Yeah.
But I will say when that move for Drew came, I was like, "Oh, what a good vet for Scoot." I thought that they're like that's a well-matched vet for him, someone whose game he
Yeah.
could really model his game after. And now he gets two. Like he gets two amazing vets. Like what are these riches in terms of like investing in your future point guard?
Hmm. Did you see the video of Scoot and Drew training together?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they went
Was
to
it
Chris.
great?
I think Chris Johnson is the trainer that they
Mm.
they went to together, and I think I think he's one of those trainers. He's probably like down in LA or somewhere else where a lot of NBA guys come and they train and they do runs together and things like that. But there was a video that Sean Hyken shared, maybe yesterday or the day before, of Scoot and Drew training together, which I was like, oh, that just warmed my heart.
Can I just say, I think that Scoot is such a like he has such a great mentality about him for as much as people talk about what he is and what he isn't and how much focus there is on where he should be at this point in his career. He like really is good at putting his head down, working hard, staying humble, and then like listening to the expertise and advisors around him to
Hmm.
make his game better. And like, remember last summer, like we heard that he did a lot of work with, I think it was Kobe White's, was it Kobe White's? I forget who it was, but like Jerami referred him to like a shooting coach,
Hmm.
and he did work on his shot. And then like we saw this year, his shot had made a huge improvement between like the season before and then this last season. And I don't know, I find him to be such an amazing, resilient, like humble, good guy, and I'm really glad he's still on our team.
Yeah, he really seems to know who he is, which I think for a 21-year-old young man is like, who knew who they were when they were 21? It's like one of those things, you either know who you are or you take a long journey in your life trying to discover and figure out who you are. And he strikes me as the kind of person who's just so solidly, he knows who Scoot is, he knows what Scoot's about, he knows what Scoot wants to do, and he openly solicits all of the feedback to allow him to be that, which for a young, like when you look around the league, I don't think everyone is at that same level and place in their mentality. So I think it's a really
Yeah.
good thing that we have him. And now he's paired up with somebody like Damian, and Drew, but I'm talking about like the mentality. Like, I bet there wasn't a single day in his entire life, even when he was 3 days old, that Damian Lillard didn't know who Damian Lillard was. You know?
It's true. He's a really self-possessed person.
Right. And has been able to take who he is and turn it into like basically like an empire, as much as you can have an empire in Portland, Oregon. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to
Yeah.
like and it feels like Scoot is kind of on that type of, he could be on that type of path just in terms of like self-possession and knowing what he is, but also like allowing that he's made mistakes and
Hmm.
has grown from them and is not afraid. Like I always remember that scene from the, I think it was in Mirren's Fader's book or in an article that she wrote about him. I guess anyway, uh about him trying to stay up all night so that he wouldn't miss his first flight for his first road trip on when he was like playing with the Ignite, and he like made himself like sit on this chair like all night long so that he would be ready to go, and then he ended up falling asleep and missing. And it was just like such a great little story and anecdote about who he was and what he learned and like what he thought he was doing and how he thought he was going to accomplish his goal and how it didn't work, but what he learned from it. So, yeah, I love that Scoot seems to be the kind of kid who will share that journey with us and
Hmm.
has really good mentors around him. I'm
I
wearing my
remember
Scoot
some,
shirt,
oh, Scoot City. I remember somebody
my
during the
Scoot
Chalk
City
Talk.
shirt.
Yeah. Somebody at the Chalk Talk asked about Scoot, like their future plans. I think I don't remember who it was exactly, but somebody asked specifically about Scoot, and they said that they wanted Scoot to be Scoot. Andre was like, "We want
Yes.
Scoot to be Scoot." And we don't they're not trying to turn him into some a player that he's not. They want him to be the player that he is and be that confidently and consistently. And I appreciate that like candidness about it at least because I think that a lot of fans especially get wrapped up on who somebody should be, how they should change their game, how they should be a different player than they are. And it's nice to hear that they're looking to him to determine the kind of player that he wants to be. And they want him to be that, and they want him to be that at a high level, and they want him to be that at a high level and consistent. Like, what more could you want for somebody than what they want for themselves?
Hmm. When there's alignment like that, oh, it's it's really great.
So anyway, I was just pleased to hear them like make sure that we understood that like Scoot is still part of our plans. Scoot, and I think that they believe that he's still going to be a great player.
Hmm.
Like what the moves around him have made a lot of people talk, but it was nice to hear them basically say some of that's just noise. Like we still believe in him.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I have anything else that I walked away with. The only other thing I walked away with was the first time we all got together, they like had this little spread of like different foods and some desserts and things like that, which like nobody really touched.
Hmm.
Um because we were all just like sitting there listening to them talk and like nobody went to the food. And then this time they just put out a giant plate of cookies and I was like, I feel so seen.
That's right. That's right. They did. And then I noticed there was one guy there, I forget his name, but the guy who was like he's associated with a basketball training gym.
Hmm.
And I just remember like seeing him, he drank like 4 bottles of water during that talk, and it was like maybe an hour and a half, and I was like, dang dude, like you stay hydrated.
Way to stay hydrated. Yeah.
Yes.
I also thought it was fun to chat with Casey a little bit beforehand, just about the Damian Lillard thing. And I was sharing with him that when I was watching the Damian Lillard press conference about how just like when as soon as Damian started talking, it was just like, ah, we're home. The way that Damian Lillard can answer a question and the cadence that he talks in, and it just like felt like home. And Casey was like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's not just the fans that feel that way about him. I'm sure the press feel that way. I'm sure that the people around the team feel that way. Like I remember Mike saying like, Dame's a really genuine guy because I mean, he had been gone for 2 years, but Mike I think was here before Damian left. So like he had the the pre-leaving Damian and the post-Damian like returning, and he was like, he's just such a genuine guy.
Hmm.
And he loves the city. And it's just nice for like everybody top to bottom to see that and feel that and have that again.
Yeah.
Um, the one other thing I wanted to mention, which I was like, should I say this? I was like, I'll just say it. Was that I mentioned to Mike and Andre, this is after we
Oh.
had like the chalk talk stuff. I mentioned to Mike and Andre, I was like, I'm kind of miss coaches in suits. And and Mike was like, oh, those aren't coming back. And I was like, I know. I told him, I was like, I know. I was like, but like, I just like the way they look in suits. And I think that some fans might like to see these coaches in suits at some point. And he was like, well, maybe for one game. Maybe for like the in-season tournament or something like that. He was like, maybe there'll be like one opportunity for a suit. So fellow fans out there who are interested in seeing the coaches in suits again, we may have one opportunity at some point down the road where maybe our coaches will wear suits because I asked Mike.
Yeah, they were not excited about that idea.
No. And I freely acknowledge, like, I work from home now. I don't have to wear nice
Oh
clothes that are
yeah.
uncomfortable. Like, I want that for them too. But also, as a fan, I have to be completely honest with myself. I like it when they wear suits on the sidelines.
Yeah, I totally get it from their point of view because like especially assistant coaches, they have so much to do and adding like having to wear a suit, I could see how that would just be like the like breaking point considering everything else that they're doing. So like if they could take something off of the backs of the assistant coaches, I can totally get on board that. But like one night it would be fun just to see them all in their little prom outfits. Like it could be like prom night and they just all dress up in their nicest suit. Just like one time or like occasionally.
Yeah. Fan appreciation.
Oh, that would be a good opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like you're saying, like the special night of like the in-season tournament. You know, it's special. They redo the whole court. And I don't think the
Right.
assistant coaches like have to, I don't know. Who knows? Assistant coaches do so much. I wouldn't be surprised if part of their job was to put the court on the court. But I don't think it is. So, maybe they could, and they could like maybe the team could like throw a stylist at them so it's not like all up to them. They can just be like somebody can take it their measurements and like bring up a few options and they just have to choose. Like make it as easy as possible on them. Then, maybe people maybe they will find out like, oh, yeah, it kind of feels good to be dressed up every once in a while.
Yeah, remember when Coach Yim used to wear bow ties?
Mm-hmm.
He would just like every now and then he would just wear bow ties. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think the whole coaching staff wore bow ties for him when he was injured
Hmm.
on the team. Like, but it's just nice to have that so that special thing that like when you visually look at somebody, you know it's for something special.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I believe in that after conversation, I also made a plug for a new album.
That's right. That's right. You did because you were like, we have Damian Lillard back. I think didn't you talk about maybe like doing a remix?
We'll do like
Maybe.
going back. Remember we like the whole Busta Bucket, Rip City Rhapsody, Can I Get a Headband? Like those were the golden
Yeah.
years of like making players sing. And I think it would be, now that we actually have somebody who like is a musician back, maybe they could revisit that idea. And oh, because we were also guessing amongst ourselves what's Damien gonna do during his gap year. Like
Mm.
when Matisse was injured, he started like working and, or making videos, and we're like, well, maybe Damien could take on a little project where they remix some cool new songs that he does with the thing. And so we'll have like the new Can I Get a Headband for remade for the 2020s. But now he's going to be the GM of Weber State, so maybe that's going to take up too much time.
Yeah. Do you think he's gonna make a song about coming home?
I
I was
don't.
thinking about that. Like Dame,
Yeah,
he's so autobiographical.
he is. And he also was very quiet in the last couple of years, so I wonder if he has a lot of stuff like saved up that he needs to like express. And so we'll see.
I like paid attention to that a little bit because I was like, is he gonna release music in Milwaukee? And
Hmm.
would people show up for him there in Milwaukee? And I was thinking, I was like, I think that he maybe music is his thing here. So like, never know. Maybe he'll release an album this year.
Yeah, yeah, could
I just
be.
think I don't even know if Milwaukee would like appreciate his music the way like Portland appreciates his music.
Yeah, we'll have to be on the lookout. We'll be on the lookout.
Yeah.
Well, should we turn to our top stories of the summer of 2025? The way we were
Yes.
gonna do this is that we haven't consulted each other on the list, and we've each brought a list of what we think the top stories of the summer were. So we're gonna do like sort of it's a little draft kind of thing. We're gonna pick our top three,
3.
and then we might have some honorable mentions to go at the end. So do you want to start? Should we do paper, scissors, rock for who gets to start? How do you want to do it?
Uh, I don't care. I have no strong feelings. I know that there'll be plenty enough good because this was such a fortuitous summer for us. There's plenty enough to go around for us to each have 3 and still have nice stuff left over.
Yeah, and so I wanted to ask you. So we just talked about like top stories of the summer. Um, and then I was like, well, what do I mean by top stories? So like for me, I took that to mean top stories of the summer wasn't necessarily like the stories that people talked about most. It was more the stories that were going to have a long-term impact on the team for
Oh, that's
me.
not how I interpret that question at
Yeah,
all.
so I'm just saying that's how I interpreted it as I was choosing like the order of things that I wanted to say.
Okay. Mine is more about like the things I just like the most.
Okay.
I thought about it in a super simple way. The things I like the most, as like the fan,
Hmm.
not me the podcaster, but like the things where I was like, yes, I'm so happy about this thing. What are the things that made me the happiest?
That is a totally great way to do it too.
Um, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, we don't have to talk much about this one because we've already talked about it. But for me, the top story of the summer was Damian Lillard returns. Culture setting, telling people that like, Damian Lillard, chose us. I guess the biggest thing for me is that Damian Lillard chose Portland. And
Mhm.
I think that's a big I think that's important because if he'd never come back, it could have there's going to be a whole lot of like, oh, we'll never know, coulda, shoulda, woulda, and like, all these ways that the Blazers may have screwed it up or it didn't work out. But the fact that he came back and chose the Trailblazers, I don't know, it puts a bow on the story. Damian Lillard's whole existence has been like so much about like telling a story. And I think that the organization they came together with the organization and allowed him, not allowed like, I don't mean it in like 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 they were making all the calls or anything, but that they were able to come together to continue that story together. There was a somebody could have gone to all these other teams and they decided to come to Portland. They decided to come to Portland now. He came back to the same coach that he left. He came to the same front office that he left. I think if any of those things had been changed, it wouldn't be the same. But I think all of that for me makes that like the top story of the summer, at least how it's going to impact the team in the next few years.
Yeah, I totally agree.
He chose
Um,
us.
I know,
I
and not
can't
everybody,
believe it.
but I believed deep in my heart that he would not have said that he wanted to return if he didn't mean he was never gonna try. Like
Mhm,
I fully believed that he would come home if it was in his own control, because Dame doesn't say things he doesn't mean.
mhm,
I mean, I don't know if everything that he's always said has worked out the way that he wants it, but he has never said something that he doesn't believe and that he doesn't want out loud in his time here. And you know, I think because we've seen him grow up, because like when he came here, he was like a kid,
mhm.
or not like a kid, but like a very young adult, and now he's like a grown adult. He's got children of his own. He's been doing this a long time. Like, if anything, I think it even means more that he said it like in his late 20s rather than, when he was 23 or something. Like Dame doesn't yank you around. And so I always knew deep in my heart that like if it was in his locus of control, he would be here. But
Yeah.
it's still nice that it did happen anyway.
And it just it fused such a like positive feel when, a lot of times there hasn't been a lot of positive things to feel.
So my first one is related to that, and I hope it's okay that I've said this. Mine specifically is Damian Lillard coming home with a no trade clause. And here is why. Because not only was that Dame saying, "Yes, I choose you," but it was also the outgoing ownership saying, "I'm not going to let somebody else screw this up for either of you." Like I'm not going to let it screw it up for Dame. I'm not going to let it if there's a change in the front office or the line of thinking of what how this team is going to be run, and for the fans, they like that to me was Jody and Joe saying, "We're going to make sure that you guys get your guy for the rest of his career." And I really, really appreciate that because I mean, a lot of people just don't think that way, you know? They
Mhm,
just don't think that way. And they know what he means to us and they know what Portland means to him. And I appreciate that, knowing that this team was up for sale at the time, that like they did what they could to protect the vision for what they think is right for this team.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. I think that's an important part of the story, which deserves its own line on this on this spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I know there's been tons of complaints about the front office, about ownership or whatever, but like in this way, I'm like, I think Jody did us right. I think Joe did us right. I think that everybody who's been involved in this organization tried to do us right. So thank
Yeah.
you to them for making sure that he's with us.
And it's funny to talk about it because like all the last few summers have been about was like how awful Bradley Beal's no trade clause has, how it is hamstringed so many teams to be able to do anything. And we're like, yay, Damian has a no trade clause.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll go for my number two, and I have barely spoken about it, but I do think it is big news, and that is the team has been sold. Um, so this would be a good time, I guess, for us to talk about that now. I think it is. I mean, obviously, it's very important. To me, the reason that it is important is because now we can all move on with our lives. um, we know, like, for so
Yeah.
long, we knew something was going to happen. It was like we had the sword of Damocles above us. It was like at any point it could fall, and we did not know what was going to happen. And so
Hmm.
now we know who it is. We know that this is somebody who's been involved in sports. That like I am pretty much like I have no idea whether or not this is a good thing. But what I did notice is that he's somebody who truly seems to really like sports, and so I feel like he's not going to come in and just like venture capital it up and like I mean I know he wants to make money, but I feel like he's shown in his ownership of the Hurricanes that he cares about building a fun and good sports experience for the people who are going to be paying him all that money to follow the team.
Yeah. I I mean I agree it's definitely going to be a big part of our story for the next however long. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how long te people I don't know what the average length of ownership is, but like I assume he's going to be here for a while. Um I had some so first of all, I knew his NHL team. I didn't know anything about him. I knew what his NHL team was, and I was surprised, I guess, a little bit that like his next step was going to be to own an NBA team, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's like, I heard he's from Texas. He owns a team in Carolina. Now he owns a team in Portland. I don't think people are like, oh, what does this mean? We're staying, we're moving, whatever. Like, I don't think, I don't know. I think it makes sense that we're staying here. He didn't move that other team in Carolina. And also don't think that people are gonna like some people have talked about whether or not we would be rebranding or doing something slightly different. I was like, when I look at that Carolina team, like this is just me being petty. They have a really ugly logo and a really ugly identity. And if they're
Except for
not
that it's exact
rebranding that, except for yes, it does.
slow down a minute.
They both look like pinwheels, but like for like it looking like a symbol for a hurricane on the Weather Channel, just like MS painted black and red. I was like, if they're not fixing that logo, they're not going to mess with ours. Our branding is great. We redesigned it not that long ago. We are going to be standing pat on our blazers, on our identity, on our pinwheel. Like, if they're going to fix anything, they got to fix that really ugly logo in Carolina.
Yeah, I was you pointed it out on Blue Sky how similar if anybody hasn't seen the hurricane logo, go look up the hurricane logo because it's like the same colors and it does just look like a sideways view of the Blazers pinwheel.
Yeah.
It's
And
wild. I had
they both look like Pokeballs.
and
Like
I had no
Pokeballs.
idea that there was another logo out there that looked like so little like all the rest of the logos in the league. So that's kind of
It's
fun.
just and anyway, it looks exactly like the hurricane logo on the Weather Channel. Like when you
Hmm.
see a hurricane like spinning up and they're trying to like show you where it is and like, oh, this is who's in the path of the hurricane. It looks exactly like that logo, but it's red and black.
So when I heard that this was everybody kept saying the Canes guy, and so I thought it was the Canes chicken guy. And I was so excited, and I said it in the group chat. I was like, "Oh my God, Donovan did an NIL commercial for Canes." And
Yeah,
either you
the
or Cassie were
chicken.
like, "Yeah, that would be great," except for that's not the Canes we're talking about.
So
For a
because I
moment
was
there,
like,
I was so excited that we had like a chicken mogul that had bought the team.
if the Canes chicken guy had enough money to buy an NBA team, I would think there's something seriously wrong. I'd be
Well,
like, what's up with this chicken?
so the only reason I thought that it was at all possible because on Bravo's Next Gen NYC, which is a new show about children of housewives, one of the people on it, her boyfriend is the son of a billionaire who made his billions with like a chicken franchise in Georgia and in the South. And I was like, oh, this is all coming together. And sadly, it didn't. It was the Hurricanes, the NHL team. But for a moment, I just thought it would be so fun to have a chicken mogul. But
The,
otherwise, other thoughts on the new ownership?
I mean, I'm totally agnostic. I'm glad to see that it's not likely this like a someone who's gonna private equity it up and, you know, mess around too much in the kitchen. And I'm glad that it's somebody who's interested in sports, who's like shown that they're interested in developing a sports team in the community that they purchased it in.
Hmm.
Um, so, but I'll just the range of possibilities, like I know people were trying to like dream big, but like the range of possibilities involves like things that I'm like neutral about and things that I would really, really, really dislike. And like we ended up to something that I'm pretty neutral about, and that feels like a win because there are very few owners out there where I would be like, yeah, I would really love to be owned by this billionaire because quite frankly, like billionaires, you know?
Hmm.
So, like, I'm glad it's not somebody who's very clearly like interested in trying to move us away or whatever. So, you know.
Yeah, I guess this whole time, or at least over the last few years, as the discussion is kind of like ramped up about the sale, and everybody's it's been so easy for everybody to just complain about Jody, because that's just like guess what is easier, and obvious or whatever. But I just, the back of my head the whole time was like, be careful what you wish for, be careful what you wish for, because like you never know. Like you think that, like Jody made a lot of moves on her way out that I think kind of like you were just talking about, like preserved, kind of like who our team has always been to us as a community. And
Hmm.
I don't know what the new guy is gonna do. And so I hope everything, turns out okay. But there's gonna be changes. I think it could have been a lot worse, I guess. It could have been somebody who, was just like, oh, I'm into sports now, and as opposed to somebody who's shown like a long track record of being it. And like, reading all the Reddit threads and all the Reddit threads that have been shared, it's as natural. Like nobody has 100% great track record. Like some things really improved. The like some of the like well, the record of the team, which is super important, that he was not afraid to invest in making the team better.
Hmm.
So that's cool. Ticket prices went way up, which, as, somebody who buys season tickets, like, oh boy, am I going to get priced out? Um, but, we'll wait and see. And I would rather wait and see on this guy than on a lot of other billionaires, I guess. Let's just say.
Yeah, and also like we saw that like the price of the team was like, above 4 billion. Like I remember everybody was like freaking out like a couple years ago when Phil Knight was trying to buy the team and they're like, "Yeah, we're not selling it right now." And he was like he offered them like 2 billion and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so they got 4?"
Yeah.
They got four. Like for the number of people out there that can afford a $4 billion team, like could have been a lot worse, as you said.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll learn more. I guess the last thing about this, the team being sold, and I'll just say this and I'll just move on from it because it's something that I've noticed, is there's, the team was sold, with the promise that it wouldn't be moved, which I 99% take to heart. Like, okay, great. He said he's not going to move it. But we all saw what happened when somebody else was promised that the team wouldn't move. So
Yeah.
I feel like the team is pretty safe and pretty steady, but that doesn't mean I'm ever going to just ever completely let go of that little fear in the back of my head that someday the team could move. And that's okay. I would just like to plead for people who are like absolutely sure 100% there's no way that this team is going to move. Like, great. I am so happy for you that you have that kind of confidence in it. But some of us just can't get there. And that doesn't mean like we're stupid, or because I've seen like all kinds of name calling against people who are like still not like 100% like, okay, like I think the team's gonna stay, but like I am never gonna be 100% because there is nothing in this world that is guaranteed. And
Not
that's just,
forever. No.
it's always going to be in the back of my mind, and I'm sorry. So like I would just like people to like maybe take a step back and be like, oh, some people, may worry about this, and piling on them is not going to help ease any of that stress or worry.
Right. And it doesn't mean that anyone's right. You know what I mean? Like this is an unknowable thing that if a team will be here forever.
Mhm.
And so like what's the point of fighting about something where nobody's right?
Yeah. And we're
Like,
just
you know what I mean? This
Yeah,
is
you just
just
have
about
to
our
kind
feelings.
you just kind of have to live life and see what happens. Yeah, so that is my
I
plea. Be nice to those of us who are maybe not 100% convinced that the team is never ever going to leave.
Yeah. I'm very pleased at the way everything looks so far, but I'll never let go of that part of me where I've seen beloved teams get completely screw communities. We've seen it happen in almost every sport. And to think, oh, that'll never be us is like I think
Yeah,
it's
it's
too hard to bank
naive.
on.
It's,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I
just too
guess,
hard to bank
okay,
on.
no, I don't mean naive. That was the wrong word. It's just a lot to expect, especially when it comes to money. And these are money making machines. And like things are not settled with the Moda Center. And until, I guess, when that is settled and what's going to happen there and who's going to pay for what, maybe I'll feel more solid.
Hmm.
But when anytime money is involved, people will do extraordinary things to make money.
Yeah, well said. And also, someone can say, even if somebody like truly believes when they buy something, they're like, I'm never gonna move this thing. Like things change.
Mhm.
They might not move it for 5 years or 10 years or whatever, but like they might someday, maybe in year 13. Who can forecast what's gonna happen 13 years from now or 18 years from now? Like it's just so hard to say that forever this is going to be true. It's true
Mhm.
until it's not.
Yeah.
And
And
it
it
might stay
feel
true forever, but it might not.
yeah. And it feels like things are, it feels like things are positive. Um, but yeah, if you can't let go of that last little bit of worry, that's just your brain protecting itself. That's my brain protecting itself.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
What's your number
Okay,
two?
so my second thing is something that we have talked about before, so we don't have to talk about it a whole lot, but like I think that as far as like our team's identity and then the way it's going to be marketed, I think that drafting Young Hansen is going to be a very big thing that changes a lot about our team. We already have noticed like I think it Casey Holdahl when we were at the Chalk Talk that talked about how he's on like Chinese socials now.
He
He's on
I don't remember if he talked about it there, but he did talk about it on the Locked On podcast just recently with Mike Richmond.
Okay. So, like we're going to be a more international team. And like it's not just because of him, right? Like Denny is international, Two is international. Like we have a bigger international footprint than we've had in a very long time, Ryan. Um, but like I'll say like even though the NBA, the way they're talking about it was like bothers me a little bit about like how like I don't know, like the way they paint like the Chinese viewership is like a little bit like icky to me. It doesn't change the fact that like Asia loves basketball. Even though we don't think of Asia a lot of the time when we think about the way that we've been marketing the NBA, Asia loves basketball. And it's going to be really exciting to see how our team, I think, engages in Asian basketball. Because I don't know, like, so China has their own league. We have NBA players that go to China, but like usually like when they are like having a hard time making it here. But there's far more like knowledge of what's happening in the NBA internationally in areas that we don't necessarily see the marketing toward. And I think it will be really interesting now that we're paying attention.
Hmm.
Um, I'm like thrilled. I think that Hansen is he's super likable, he's super lovable, he's young, he's probably never been away from home like this before, and I'm really excited to see how he makes a name for himself here. But I also am just like I'm excited to have like a more international feel to our team. I think I don't know. I think it can add a lot.
Yeah, well, I think the exposure that the team is going to get is going to be the really interesting part of it because, we've heard in like in different places that like 5 million people watched a summer league game.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that is mind-blowing. with how many people are going to be watching the Blazers now, and it's really exciting. And I think you're right. Like I think Jan is Hansen is going to be a really fun player. He seems like a really fun person and a great guy and with a great personality and a great feel for basketball. And all these people in his country are going to be like wanting to see how he does, and they're naturally like how could you not fall in love with Tumani Kamara and and Scoot when Scoot's the guy, when there's if there's a lot of interplay between Scoot and Hansen, and just how they play together. Like it's not like they're only gonna watch Young Hansen, they're gonna watch the whole team, and I think
Yeah,
that's really fun and exciting.
it super is. And the one thing that is so Asian cultures are far more communal cultures than like American culture, right? Like one of the things that I think is has already I've already started to see among American fans is people talk about how like, what a really good team player he is, really good passer, really good at like giving credit to teammates and whatever. And I'm like, that is like really like in perfect alignment with Asian cultures, East Asian cultures, Korean culture, Japanese culture, Chinese culture. Like that is perfect. And I think that it's going to be surprising to see a player that has every right to have a big ego about playing well be that generous because that is culturally how he's raised and it feels really natural.
Hmm.
I think that I see similar comments about like Asian players playing in other sports like soccer. But like team sports, they just feel a little bit different
Yeah. Well,
because of like of that communal culture aspect of like team play.
hmm well, I think we'll probably learn a lot more about how like Chinese players come up through their system. Like I don't know
Mhm.
anything about it right now. What I know about the American system is it's very focused on the individual success. So, like, you don't put a team together very young and then that whole team comes up together. That's not really a thing. It's like whether or not this player can develop and get to the NBA is like kind of like those are the overarching stories that we hear about player development going from a kid to a grown up who makes it into the NBA. I'm very interested to learn more about how systems work in other countries because we've learned a little bit about how it works in some of the other countries, and I'm very excited to see how it works in China in terms of like I mean I'm not saying that I think that like at 5 years old they get put together in a team and they grow up together, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that the in the US it seems like having a player who's a good team player is great, but being a great player is like the ultimate mark. And maybe they're a good team player as well, and hopefully they're a good team player. For them to like take them to actual success, they have to also be a good team player. So I'm just gonna be observing as I learn more about how other cultures like move their kids through the system,
Hmm.
what some of the differences are and how things are done differently and what some of the similarities are too.
Yeah, and I did get a request from a listener on Blue Sky for us to find somebody who knows more, who can explain more about Chinese basketball culture and
Hmm.
CBA, which is something we should look for a guest that's interested in coming to talk about that because I'm also interested in learning about that. And it also is something that I don't think is necessarily like, like it's not as accessible, right? Like it's hard to even watch CBA games. And so being a fan in English speaking country, it might be hard to even access some of that
Hmm.
stuff. So
Yes. If you're
be
a
interested
listener,
for us to find
especially a
somebody.
new listener, who's just getting to learn who some and who found us because of Young Hansen coming, and you're somebody who understands the system, I think it would be really cool to learn, like you said, more about it from somebody who knows more about it than we do.
Yeah, and I'm also just really interested in how like they bring in like foreigners, how like the route for because we see a lot of NBA players go to China to play
Hmm.
basketball as well, not just now Chinese players coming to the NBA, but in other sports leagues around the world, like they have sometimes some extra rules around bringing foreigners in, and I'm
Hmm.
curious if there's any rules around that um, that we should know about. Because like in Korea, in Korean baseball, I think you're allowed to have a maximum of four foreigners, non-Korean players on your team.
Hmm.
And usually they're pitchers, right? Like they're usually like pitchers that are not good enough for MLB, but are really, really, really good. But that's not always true. So like Yasiel Puig, who's a Dodger and a couple other with a couple other MLB teams, he played in Korea for like 4 or 5 years. Um, and he's not a pitcher. He's there because he was a big bat. But
Hmm.
um, it's just interesting to know about how Americans can fit in internationally as well, because we're seeing more and more guys from the NBA that like are too good for the G League, not good enough for the NBA, but also really like a career in basketball, go overseas.
Hmm.
Like Nas Little is now in Japan. We've seen a lot of guys go to China. Some of the guys end up in Europe. Um, yeah, it's not just like one, it's not just like everybody tries to get to the NBA. It's sometimes the best careers for guys from the United States
Yeah.
are in
Or
other
somewhere
countries.
else. Yeah, if they can't make it. Yeah. And then like the more I kind of sit on this, the more I think it's so because we've always both been interested in what is that pathway, especially like in those younger years, like for somebody like how do they choose a college? How do they go in America and US, like how do they go, through the college system, or if they don't go through the college system, like who guides them through all of that? And I think like when we learned about like Yusuf Nurkic's past, let's say, and how he like was kind of somebody literally knocked on the door and said, "Hey, do you want to play basketball?" And so as a very young man, he moved away from his family and had, one kind of experience. And so like what's it like in other countries? I think it'll be interesting to learn.
Yeah,
Okay.
agree.
Anything else you want to say on that? I think we're on number three, right?
Yep, you're on your third.
Okay. My number three, you've sort of talked about this already, and it is also going to be my take. The Blazers signed a big man coach. um, Actually, it's sort of in general like the upgrades to the assistant coaching. Not that I'm saying anything derogatory about the previous assistant coaches, but there are some real heavy lifter power hitters on the assistant coaching staff now. And when you think about it, when Chauncey first came in the league, never been a head coach, you're like, who is necessarily going to leave a good job that they have as an assistant coach somewhere to work for somebody who maybe hasn't been proven? So I can see
Mm,
how maybe coach, like assistant coaches were growing with the head coach at the same time. But now the assistant coach or the head coach has been established. He's started to show a little bit more about what he's about. And I think it makes sense that others are like now have a better idea what they're signing on to when they join a coaching staff that's headed by Chauncey Billups. Now 5 years, 4 years into his 4 years behind him in his coaching career. So excited about Tiago Splitter. I know that what you said, that he brings more than just being a big man coach, but with two very young, very exciting big men with completely different skill sets.
yeah.
Bringing in somebody like Tiago Splitter, who has been a head coach and has been a big man, was in the Spurs system, which is like the golden standard for systems. I am so excited about him. I just listened to like a podcast this morning where he was talking about coaching, and he was talking about like his philosophies, like how he played in Paris. And he's just all about pace and speed and keeping it simple so that players can make decisions faster because they've done it so many times that they know exactly what to do. They don't have to spend time making decisions. He talked about, Popovich coaching everybody to understand that they have half a second to make a decision, and that's very big for him. So I'm just so excited that about the potential that the new coaches are going to bring to the players, and they have a big man coach.
Also, Tiago Splitter is like he's interesting because I think we remember him as a player and not necessarily because he had like a huge role, but he was part of that Spurs team where like everyone was high IQ and they played really good team basketball. But like it was like I can't remember like that, but it was like, like the Tim Duncan,
Yeah,
Ginobili, like
he was part of
Boris
the bench mob.
Diaw.
It was,
Yes.
yeah, it was Boris Diaw, Patty Mills, Manu Ginobili. Like they all came in off the bench.
Yeah. And they were like formidable.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was he also talked a lot about the relationship between the one and the five and how like that's super important, how super important that was to him, and how like it was always a big focus for him was making sure that he was really close to the point guard and that they were in accord, because he says when you come into the league like and you're a big man, like all your life you've had people like throwing lobs for you, and then you get into the league and the point guard does so like the the center is doing so much more than just catching lobs. The
Mhm.
center is like making life easier for the point guard, and how they have to work like so in accord and they have to be of so the same mind. I thought that was really interesting. And then I also got to thinking as I was listening to him talk about this, what he was saying about simplicity and about like repetition. He runs his drills like he tells everybody they have to go like 120% in drills, but they are really short. So, and he says he would rather than walking through it slowly and doing it perfectly, he would rather have him like charge through it at like 120% and make mistakes and then learn from that and then correct that the next time. Um,
But learn how to
but
do it fast the first
Right.
time.
Learn how to do it fast. But I was also thinking about the fact that Yang Hansen, not a native English speaker. And so one of the things that Splitter was talking about was like keeping everything simple because of the need to make quick decisions. But I was also thinking how that would be handy and like for somebody who is still learning the language. And like he showed during summer league that Hansen like understands a lot about what's going on the court, but I bet a lot of that is also because they kept it simple and he didn't have to do too much thinking about like translation while he's in the middle of playing or interpreting in the middle of playing. Um, so I was kind of excited about the potential of somebody who's going to bring that like quick decision, repeat, get it in your body. And because he says like sometimes like coaches will be out there like calling these plays that like are like a whole sentence long, and it's too late at that point.
Hmm.
When you're saying it's like it's a double drag screen down over twist blah 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 blah, and he's like no, just like do one hand signal and everybody knows what that means, and then they do it over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, and also like sometimes those like windows of opportunity are not open that long. So you have to be decisive or otherwise the play is broken.
Hmm.
So I can see how that can be a really valuable tool and also maybe a valuable tool for a team that maybe they're not all working in the same first language. I was thinking about that Spurs team that we saw Tiago Splitter play with and how they were a little bit of ahead of their time in the type of basketball they played. And now the model of like playing 1 through 10
Hmm.
is that's the future of the NBA right now. Like everybody's working toward a team where, the 1 through 10 are going to play like big minutes and that there's like very versatile rosters within that 1 through 10 because they're all like startable in a playoff situation. But that was the Spurs.
Hmm.
Like the Spurs played that way and they had like formidable guys playing like the eighth position and they knew their role and they were all really good at it and they took pride in it. And I think that that's like really good experience to bring to like the way teams are being built now, like like the Thunder and like the Pacers, like they're playing all of those guys big minutes and they all have important roles even though they're not playing 35 minutes each. Their
Hmm.
20 minutes matters quite a bit and it's like no one else can do what they do, and that was like that era of the Spurs. So I hope that he can bring that as well because you see like I think that any team that's not built that way now is thinking about how they're going to like transition their team to be that eventually because it's going to be really hard to win a championship without really good players that you can that like 1 through 10.
To go that
Some of
deep.
them 1 through
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a really good point. And I'm glad that we're talking about Tiago Splitter. Because I think he's a cool addition. And I think also you're right, there's a lot of other really cool additions on this team as well. The guy who was the coach of the Sacramento Kings G
Hmm.
League team. Like, there's a lot of really cool talent coming into this team. And also, I saw Nate Bjorkgren, right?
Yeah, so I have the page called up right now. So yeah, Nate Bjorkgren is staying. Nate Bjorkgren is the first one listed after Billups, and then Tiago Splitter. And also, like, I mean, Tiago Splitter has like good like European experience as
Yes.
a head coach. So like I
Yes.
think he could easily be a head coach. And I think this is like his way to being a head coach. So I'm excited about that. Patrick St. Andrews, who was with the Grizzlies.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he was the first assistant to their head coach.
yeah, for 2 seasons, and then he was with the Bucks when they won their championship, I guess, with
Hmm.
Drew Holiday. Um, Quentin Crawford, he's the one who led the Stockton Kings to the G League championship. Ronnie Burrell is staying. Before that, he was with the Nets. And the Nets, Tiago told an interesting story about how, like, after his career ended because of injury, Sean Marks at Brooklyn invited him to basically come and spend a year with the team and spend half his time in the front office and half the time with the coaching staff to figure out what it was he wanted to do. Anyway, that was a little Brooklyn
Interesting.
connection. I thought that was really nice. James Posey,
Hmm.
um, is new.
And
Yeah.
he's buddies with Chauncey Billups because they were like teammates,
Did
I
they play
think.
together?
I think they played
Yeah.
together. Yeah. I think that's part of like their connection.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's been coaching beyond that, but like they had at one point played together.
We have so many interesting assistant coaches. We might have to do deep dives on some of them later on in the year if things
I
get
would love that.
sometimes
I
it's
would
really
love that.
hard. Like usually it's like you can get like a little bit of information about the assistant coaches, but like he's got like a lot of like pretty significant guys on the coaching staff, on the assistant coaching staff this year.
There's
Not
so
to
many more
say, yeah.
coaches now in the there's so many more coaches now in the NBA that have like playing experience that you can very easily read about. I mean, there's always been guys with playing experience, but like like Terry Stotts played, but he didn't play in the NBA. But there's a
Hmm.
lot of guys with like NBA experience or like really prominent college experience or something like that, where it's easy for us to like know a little bit about their basketball playing career in
Hmm.
addition to their coaching.
Hmm. So what's your third top story of the summer?
Okay, so this one is like again, remember, this is like things that make me happy. This is just like that's my framing here. Things that make me happy. I was so thrilled that W.A.T. Reath's contract is guaranteed.
Yes, that would
Do
make
I
Rose
think it's
very happy.
Do I think that's the biggest moving shaking piece? No. But here's the thing. He's probably the most interesting big that we have to be paired with the two young
Hmm.
centers that we have. He has experience knowing Hansen's game. And I also just kind of like that when Mike and Andre talked about how WAP was a part of their process for knowing more about Hansen before a lot of people were looking at him, um, that they like I don't know, honored that intel and that relationship with him. And they are like, we have a place for you here and we're going to keep you around. I don't know. I like that. It feels less extractive than I think that some teams might have gone about it. And I'm just very pleased that he'll be here and he can be like a big brother. I'm not sure how I feel about this big daddy business, but whatever. Uh, um, but like, he does bring a certain amount of like humble head down work ethic that is really nice, and he is a stretch five, like a true stretch five. Um, yeah, I just really enjoy him. And now I feel differently about him staying here because I think I told you last season that I am interested in him not being on our team because I want him to have an opportunity to play for something because
Hmm.
he's young in his career, but he's old age-wise. And I knew that he wasn't going to have as long of a career as a lot of guys because of that. But if we're going to transition to trying to win and for him to have a role that's meaningful, like I am all about that. If we can offer him that, great. But my feelings around me saying he should move on was more about like what his opportunities were going to be in his career and
Hmm.
not because I didn't want him here.
Hmm. I love your point that you made, especially about so you were talking about how they got some they were able to have conversations with WAP about Yang Hansen because he played for the same team that Hansen played with. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure if they were actually on like the same team within the team, how they have like different levels. But they definitely practiced together and had time together. And so WAP was able to give them information about what it was like playing with him and playing against him. And I hadn't ever thought about the part where, not necessarily that it was necessarily that it was a reward, but like you were saying, like honoring the fact that he helped them with the getting that information and being, I think he's 29, almost 30. I think WAP is like 29, almost 30 now.
Yeah,
So he might be like looking at what is next. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him doing like player development and sticking around the NBA in some form like that. And maybe he's able to stick around with the Blazers for a while. Um, and he is the stretch five option. Like
yeah,
when they want to deploy him to come out there and give him a different look, because I think it's going to be really interesting to see like the rotations and how Donovan, who's so strong defensively, and Hansen, who's so strong offensively, like how are they going to morph both those guys into better on the other side of the ball? But in the meantime, you want to throw a stretch player in there, we got W.H.A.T.
yeah. He has a niche that's like not really filled by anybody else.
Yeah. And he doesn't need like 25 minutes of playing time. It could be like, every other game we see him for a little bit to mix things up. Yeah, I
Totally.
like that. I like that. That did make me happy.
He's one of those players that like everything I hear about him, I like about him. Everything about like the way we've like the fans we get to interact with him. Like he's so lovely and I want good things for him and I know that what he's doing right now is like life-changing for his family. Like I want to cheer for him for as long as we are able to offer him a role that is good and fulfilling for him. So I'm just so pleased to have him.
Love it. Okay, so my top three were Damian Lillard returns, the team is sold, and Blazers sign a big man coach, which also serves as my take. Um, your top three,
Are Damian Lillard's no trade clause, drafting Young Hansen, and Reath having his contract guaranteed for the upcoming season. Honorable mentions.
yeah. Okay, I'll read my honorable mentions. The other ones that I had ready to go. Blazers lean even more into their defensive identity with the addition of Drew Holiday.
Hmm.
And Donovan adopts a puppy.
Oh, that's my number one honorable mention is that Donovan Clingan got a puppy. For those of us who are interested in Blazer pets in general, and two Blazer socials, because suddenly now his not only does he have a puppy, his puppy's got an Instagram. We get pictures of his puppy. It's a golden retriever, and like as you know, I have a golden retriever. We are big golden retriever puppy fans over here. So, and also that makes us a two golden
Yeah.
retriever
Well, three
team.
because Chris has two, doesn't he?
Does he have two now?
I think Chris has two golden retrievers. Chris Murray
Okay,
has
so
two.
so
So
we have
that's
three
we're up
golden
to three.
retrievers.
And what does Shaden have? Doesn't he have a we'll have
Shaden
to
has, oh yeah, Shaden has like I want to say it looks like a German Shepherd or
oh
something. It's something that,
Shaden has a young and fluffy cute one as well.
yeah, something.
So yeah, the pets are growing. Let's see if maybe someday we'll bring back the MVP, the most valuable pet. Maybe we're getting closer to that.
I know. So speaking to Shaden's dog and Chris's two dogs, if you guys want your have your own socials, we would be very happy to follow them.
Hmm.
Like I'm following Donovan Clingan's puppy, Ollie. Um, let's see, other things on my honorable mention. Matisse is here for another year. That's another thing that leans into our defensive identity. We're gonna have more Matisse steals.
I always forget about Matisse. I feel so bad.
Matisse is a little bit like one of those guys, like just like the way he carries himself. He's a little bit like a guy who just walked in off the street and is playing basketball, but he's really, really good.
He's also one of those people that like is really, really quiet and just kind of like sneaks up and all of a sudden he's there. And you're like, ah!
Yeah.
I think that fits
Like
in with his also like kind of how he plays because he's always like coming from behind or like, like you don't necessarily know what you're up against until all of a sudden it's too late. So maybe that's just
I
part of his identity is that maybe we're meant to forget him because he's trying to
yeah.
like be so under the radar.
I enjoy watching him play. He's really fun to watch play on defense. Like if you
Oh
so
yeah.
sometimes I'll like during a section of the game I'll just pick a player that's who I'm watching whether they have the ball or not. That's who I'm paying attention to. He is a really interesting player to see move around.
Hmm.
Um and even when you like I remember there was a game that ended last season where he got like the game-winning block.
Hmm.
And I remember him saying, like, in his post game, he was like, "Oh yeah, I actually made a mistake." So like, it's a good thing I went out and got that block because he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And the idea that he has just such good defensive instincts that like even when your plan doesn't go to plan, he can still like turn that into a great play is like really special because like that defensive specialty is like not as highly regarded in some ways, I think, in the NBA as impactful as it is.
Hmm.
It's underrated.
I really hope that they continue to lean into this defense thing and don't even worry about trying to add the offense at this point. Like we have a year, like we're now 2 years away. Like if we're going on Scoot's timeline, when we got him, we were 2 years away from 2 years away, da, 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 so now we're just straight up like 2 years away.
2 years away.
So we have time. Like I don't want to rush at trying to like force a bunch of offense into this. Like if they lose a bunch of games like 88 to 99, like I am fine with that. If they are regularly holding everybody under 100 because their defense is so stout, I want them to lean into that and really like have no question that they're the team everybody hates to play because it's just not going to be any fun because they're just going to be clamped up the whole time. Other teams may win because they have more offense, but I don't want to like artificially go try to start hunting offense when they still need to like solidify this defensive identity, which is like I'm really excited about like Drew Holiday coming in, um, to play with Scoot and teach him his defensive ways.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I similar to the way that when we had Damian Lillard for 10 years, then I never felt like we were out of a game because I knew that he could come back and score 15 points in the last 3 minutes. Like you know how we never knew that we never felt like we were losing until we've lost.
Uh-huh.
Similarly now, I'm starting to cautiously feel like we can always get a stop if we need it,
Yeah.
which is crazy because there was a
Yeah.
time where I was like, "Oh, we need a stop. Oh, well, this is an L."
Yeah. It's more like, well, we might not be able to score, but at least we can stop them from scoring anymore, you
Hmm.
know? So yeah, that I hadn't thought about it that way. That's an interesting, really good way to look at it.
There was just so many years where we were like where we looked at our when we were like it comes down to one possession and we need to stop. We were like, "Oh, great."
Uh, pray.
Hope
Yeah.
hope that they miss it. Hope they miss their shot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really want them to like double and triple down and keep going on the defense thing. And then when the offense arrives, it arrives. I don't want to like force it and worry about it right now.
Yeah, same. All right. Well, that's my honorable mentions.
How about your take? I gave my take. My take is that the Blazers signed a big man coach in Tiago Splitter. He might be more than just a big man coach, but I think that they listened to the podcast and knew how much we were hoping for one.
Um, this is my take, and this is you kind of got a little bit of a preview in it in that conversation that we just had about the stuff that happened this summer. But my take is this. Jody was a fine owner. Jody was fine. I'm so cool with Jody. Like people like had a lot of complaints about Jody, what she did and what she didn't do. And yes, she didn't do a lot of press and we don't know a lot about her, but I never felt wronged by Jody. And I think that she never intended to be the owner of a basketball team. And she also got the team at a time where it was a really strange period of transition, where they had that stuff happen with Neil Olshey. And then she had to go out and find new people to help lead this team through a rebuild. And that is not necessarily an easy thing to do, especially when you weren't planning on being the owner of, by the way, I guess multiple teams, right? Because she
Three
owns the Seahawks
professional
too.
teams.
and she owns the MLS team. So like as far as like the things that I could have expected from her, I think she was fine. She was totally fine and great by some measure, considering the fact that she never even intended to be doing this job. Like I'm pleased with where she's leaving us, and I am pleased with like what we're set up to be in the next few years. Whether or not the owners continue on this path or not, I don't know, but I'm not disappointed as a fan. And so I'll just say like thank you to Jody for being the shepherd of this team at a time when you probably didn't expect to be or want to necessarily be, but like I'm cool with you.
I love it, and I'm not gonna argue. I've never understood the absoluteness of some people just believing that she was a bad owner when, like you said, she was never intending to be. I mean, and she was like the caretaker. She wasn't even
Yeah,
like the owner. She was
right.
the caretaker, having just lost her brother, and then suddenly here's three teams, and I think she did her best, and yeah, I think especially on the way out the door, I was like, wow, that was could have been different. It could have been a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, this team could have been in a far worse position than we were in. And especially considering we went through some like dark years where we were in intense rebuild in her tenure.
Hmm.
Like, and it wasn't necessarily because of anything she did,
Hmm.
like Paul passed away and like we had that scandal around our GM at the time that she inherited, and then she had to fire him
Hmm.
and then find a new path forward. And then also then our star left for a period of time. Like
Yeah.
those are all really hard things to deal with when you also haven't been in the organization for a long time. You don't have the same relationships. And like
Hmm.
people, I know people talked a lot about like what Bert Cold's like role is in our team and whatever. But like who else is she going to get information from? She hasn't been involved in the day-to-day for a decade. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. I think she did the best with what she had like available to her, and we could have been in a lot worse position, and I'm very thankful that she's done some of the things that she has done on her way as she transitions out of this role, to like put us in a position to have a fun team that we love with the things we care most about.
Yeah, and that's a tall order. I mean, that was a tall order. And also, she came to a lot of games. She sat right
She
down there in
did.
her cute little satin jacket, and she didn't have to. She
Yeah.
came all the way from, from up north. She didn't have to. She could have just been hands off, and, she did. So,
No.
yeah, I think saying thank you right now is a good thing to do. Thank you, Jody.
Yeah. Thank you, Jody. We appreciate what you did for us, and we're really pleased with the team that as it is right now, and we're excited to watch basketball again.
Yay! Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up there. Folks can find us on Blue Sky. That is where we have a take under at We Have a Take. You can find me at TCB Biggs. You can find Rose at Rose L. Harding. Any other last words before we cut it and come back in a few weeks?
No, just shout out to our friend of the pod, Carson, who we saw at the Chalk Talk again, the first time, the second time, and who knows, maybe the next time.
Yeah, yeah. And if anybody from the Blazers organization is listening, thank you for the big man coach, strong consideration for the suit night for assistant coaches, and a new album highlighting the players produced by Damian Lillard. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for listening. Go Blazers!